can view this afterwards. So today's webinar is called Beyond Images, Weaving Body Image into the Classroom, Teaching, Inspiring, Growing, and Thinking. And we have two superstar presenters here for you, Heather Thompson and Helen Vlachoyanncos, or Miss V, who's very dear to my heart. She was my teaching mentor when I went through Teachers College, so I'm very, very excited to be here presenting this tonight. So I'm just going to read a little bit about both of our presenters, and then I'm just going to pass it off to them and let them take the lead. So Heather Thompson is an elementary teacher who works in the Peel District School Board and is currently serving as Vice President with the Peel Elementary Teachers Local. Heather has previously worked as an early literacy teacher, teacher librarian, and primary grade teacher in the Peel Board, and has integrated her love for literacy with her passion for promoting positive body image and self-esteem in the students she teaches. She has co-written several resource documents, including the Beyond Images curriculum for NEDIC and the Reflections of Me curricula for the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario. She's also done panels and such for NEDIC, and I'm happy to have her on board as a volunteer and as a co-writer for the Beyond Images curriculum. Helen is a grade 7 and 8 teacher at Knob Hill Public School with the Toronto District School Board. As a writer and facilitator for the ETFO Reflections of Me Body Image Project, Helen has facilitated the implementation of ETFO's Reflections of Me on a school-wide level, supporting the work with students and staff. She's also one of the writers of the grade 4 to 8 curriculum that we've created with NEDIC with the support of the DEV. Her present focus is to work with intermediate students to build resiliency and positive self-esteem. In addition, Helen is looking at community involvement and be inclusive of the voices of families and community members with the issue of body image. And this is just a tiny snippet of how much of the impact that these ladies have on all of the students and people that they teach and work with every single day. So we're so thrilled that they're able to join us. I'm going to pass it off to Helen and Heather to take over from here.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me, Heather? Just make sure.
Everyone can hear? Yep.
Okay, good.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is super cool.
Mm-hmm.
A song for you, but we're not here for that. So, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're going to spend the next hour just grazing the surface of here because there's so much. Oh my gosh, we can go in so many directions. So Heather and I have really planned to sort of just touch on the surface of different things, hopefully inspire you by the end. So, here we go.
And bear with us. We will try to keep in touch with the questions as you're posting them throughout. But we might need an occasional nudge if we haven't gotten to one. Okay?
Exactly. So, here is our agenda. Thank you, Marbella, for introducing us. That was so sweet. Kind of awkward to hear about yourself, but we're really focused. We're going to organize our time together around these three areas here. Here's what, so what, and now what, which is actually a really great strategy, classroom teachers, to use with your students around different issues you may be working on beyond body image as well. So we're going to use this framework tonight to go through different aspects with you. Okay, so
we've got a couple people still joining us.
I'm muting delayed echo.
Okay, so Heather, do you mind when Helen is speaking, putting your speakers on mute, and we'll do the same thing when you're speaking?
That sounds good.
I think that's just what is causing a bit of the feedback. So you can go ahead.
Okay, coolio. I'm going to go. So, here we are. Who are we? Heather, do you want to start?
Sure. Okay. So a little bit about me. Marbella gave kind of my my curriculum vitae, or what I'm currently doing. I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 19 years. I am currently in a federation released role, so I'm in a member support role for teachers working full-time with the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario, the Peel local group, and that really allows me to be an education advocate. I get to protect members who might be experiencing discipline issues or having a really bad teacher performance appraisal, or dealing with a tough principal, tough parents, dealing with challenging students. And I feel that a lot of my work as a curriculum writer and facilitator have really lent to the skills that I have in this role now. And probably what's influenced me the most has been my own experiences of body image and disordered eating over the years. So much of what I can speak to throughout this evening and in other opportunities around body image really does come from personal experience. I hope to try and bring a little bit of humor to it, but also sensitivity.
And very similar to Heather, of course, this is very personal for me too. A journey that probably consciously started around 20 years ago, but really around trying self-love and positive self-image, positive body image, the whole gamut. Today, actually, I was talking to my students that I was doing this, and they start, can we like sign in? And they're so cute. I said, no, step away. But what we're starting in my classroom something, I borrowed this term from another teacher called passion projects. And I think that for me is what it's about, finding your passion, honing in on it. And the kids are going to start, and about 3 or 4 of my students are like, we really want to do body image actually, Miss V. We want that to be our passion project. So I think that's really the core of who I am, is, as the first statement says, a passionate educator, but always questioning, reflecting, thinking, lots of talking, but lots of listening as well. So we're excited to take you on this journey with us this next hour. So here's what. We're going to spend a little bit of time just really looking at body. What is body image? How do we define it? How does it impact our students? And how does it also impact our teaching of our students as well? So because it's so multifaceted and so complex. Heather, do you want to jump in? Heather, we can't hear you. Did you unmute?
Oh, is this better?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, am I back? Am I still on? Is this okay? Yeah, okay. So sorry, I was just apologizing for the fact I'm actually virtually with you today from my Mississauga office. I just wasn't able to get out to Scarborough in time for this today. So, in terms of when we think about body image, it really is, our own perception of how we see ourselves. If we take a look, it's kind of how we see ourselves in the mirror, but it's also, how we feel within our own body, and then the perception that we have of others. So it is so multifaceted. So it's not just our own experience and our own feelings of being in our body and what we think about the body. It's also what we perceive others to think about our body, and therefore how we may conduct ourselves based on that. I often talk about the fact that when I was younger, in particular, going through university, depending on whether I felt I was the largest person in the room, the quieter I got. So if I thought I was the biggest person in the room, I was really, really quiet because I didn't want attention drawn to me. If I felt that I was on the average size in the room, I felt more comfortable to speak. So, and it was absolutely the perception that I had of how other people saw me. And later on, when I talked about it with some of my friends who had noticed that I behaved very differently in different situations, they were amazed that all of that was going on inside my head, and that turmoil and that decision making, was a part of every action and every moment of my life. So, we have a wonderful quote up on the screen right now, and it talks about body image being your mental picture. And how it's interlinked with your self-esteem, and they really do work together. So, when we think about our students, body image isn't just our students and how they present themselves, but it's how they perceive others. And it's also interlinked with how we perceive our students and how we respond to our students based on what we think they think of us. So we're dealing with a lot of layers altogether here. Helen?
I have to remember to unmute. It's exactly that. And being in the classroom, back in the classroom these last 5 years, I was doing different things at the board, centrally, working with teachers. The last 5 years I've been working with grade 7, 8 students, and it's exactly what Heather is talking about, the whole perception of what they think others, for example, a wonderful student in my room, I love my kids, they are my kids, today just said, Miss V, did you notice something? And I was like, what, honey? And she's like, my retainer's gone, like, I'm not lisping. And I was like, I didn't even notice, like, I really, like, I love you, I love who you are, and what that didn't, but that's what she fixated on, that she had this retainer, and that she was speaking weird, as she said. And I said, your thoughts are wonderful and beautiful, and you share them and you listen. And so that whole piece is really big with students. They're going through so much. They're at this age too, their bodies are changing, they're all of this piece, and it's a struggle. So what they perceive, I shouldn't even just say they, as what others think about us or about themselves, that's a huge reality piece as well. And that plays into the work, especially with students, right? How to get them to see how wonderful they are. And what I say to the kids too, beyond the outer layer, right? So even I say to the kids, sometimes I have an issue saying, you're so beautiful. I say it meaning the inside too, for example, but it's a word laden with a whole bunch of definitions and understandings and connotations. And so even the word beautiful, what does that mean? And how do they receive that message as well? And do you tell a boy they're beautiful? How do they receive that, etc.? So so many layers. And you know what? Layers for us. And so we're going to talk about that as well too as we go along tonight, because Heather and I believe very strongly, and it's not just something we've made up and pulled out of thin air, that this is also about your own journey with dealing with your biases and your internal issues as well. So we're going to go through that with you as well, and maybe challenge your thinking a little bit. So, some of our slides, the images aren't showing up. Okay, this blank slide that you see there, yeah, we'll upload it after, but we can still talk to the issue. What we had there is health at every size. And so, Heather, I think I've talked.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So this is very much the health at every size model is very much, something that we feel very strongly about through NEDIC and through the work that we do in terms of rethinking what is the what is a perfect size, right? Helping students to stop judging each other based on what the media, and we'll talk a little bit about media later on. But there are some very prescriptive sizes and looks out there of what is considered beautiful, what is considered the perfect body, and we very much feel that the perfect body is the body that's perfect for you, and it's the body that you're in and how you use it and how you move with it, and how it works for you. The body is an amazing thing, and it kind of does all these things that we don't even know it does. And sometimes our students and we as teachers get very caught up in the media images of what what skin color is supposed to look like, and what the ideal skin color is, what the ideal hair is, what height we're supposed to be at a certain age. And we know our students grow at very different rates. Genetics and there's all sorts of different developmental and social influences that have a role in our physical development. So trying to get away from subscribing to a particular size, a particular weight, a particular body shape, and helping kids to understand that we are healthy at a variety of different sizes, that our bodies are healthy, despite being part of the cookie cutter image. Helen, I'm going to turn it over to you to kind of add on.
Okay. Yeah, it's exactly, and it's funny because kids think that it's health comes if I've had this discussion over the years with my students around what does being healthy mean. So even the fact, like, health in terms of mind, body, and soul, even mind, body, heart, that whole balance of health too. Sometimes we think of health just in terms of body or about size, or and so even breaking that thinking down into, well, what if someone is really thin but really has disordered eating? What does that mean? What if someone, even racially, in terms of even their skin, what does that mean? Like, is someone considered more healthy if their skin is lighter, darker, etc.? So having conversations with the kids around this health at every size. So I can self-identify, I'm a larger woman. To be honest with you, I'm actually really proud of that, being in the school and in the classroom as a role model for my students, to say, hey, like, I love to go. I just started getting into yoga. I love that. I love doing that. I'm also funny, and I'm also smart, and I also am sensitive, and I'm also kind and caring, and all of these. And the kids will say, but Miss Fee, you're not big. We don't see that. I said, but the fact is I am. And so what does that mean? Like, you don't see it. Does that mean you don't see it because it's negative? We deconstruct the word fat even. Is that negative? So this health at every size is a huge movement. Lots has been written. NEDIC has written a bulletin as well about it. It's on the site around, just thinking about all the aspects of what that looks like. And so it leads us into the slide that I have up here. So our apologies, because I think we're just having trouble with some of the images maybe that we've imported. That's what it seems like, because in one slide there was another image. But I know Sarah and Marbella have said we'll post this so that you can see everything. And if it's okay, I'll old school it and just hold it up to the webcam for you. I hope that's okay. But so this idea of inclusive curriculum and what that looks like. And, Heather and I are from two different boards of education here in the GTA, if you will. But this is a huge piece of a lot of the curriculum, and outside of the academic curriculum, what does the inclusive curriculum look like? And not having, I remember when I first started teaching 16 years ago, I had an equity period. Like, it was like, oh, this is when we're going to deal with, but it's like, no, this needs to be woven in and threaded into everything we do, from the book that we choose to read, to the issue we choose to discuss, to the video that is shared. And this is an integral part. And if you look at the questions here on the right of the slide, like who's present here, whose voices are present and absent, and who's acknowledged, and what resources. I remember my first few years of teaching that even my mentor said to me, your curriculum, like part of the curriculum is even what's up in the school. Are there signs in different languages? Are there faces that represent, and is it tokenistic? Are the faces tokenistic and stereotypical too? Because it's not good enough to have just, hey, we have this representation. What does that look like? And so inclusive curriculum is a big part of weaving that into our daily interactions with the kids, and not as a separate entity.
By the end of this hour, I'll have this down pat. Okay. So, it's about being purposeful in what we do as a teacher. So, when we're choosing the books that we read, are they representative of the children in our class? If the protagonist is always a white male, is that representative of the kids in the classroom? Do our children see their faces represented back in the images that we show them in, picture books, in novels, in nonfiction material, in the media that we stream? And, are we also represented as well? I teach in Peel, and while I'm not in a school right now, very much, we've done, as Helen was saying, years ago in Peel, we used to have a character education period that we blocked off in our schedule each week. Well, no, that's not where we're going, and we know, and for teachers in the audience there, that we're very much looking at not being blocked into specific periods of teaching anymore, that it's very much a learning map, and you're mapping out how you're integrating all the different materials. So in what we're going to share with you later, the Beyond Images curriculum, when Helen and I were creating it, it was very much purposeful in that it's not 4 or 5 lessons that you do over the week. It's not body image week, yay, and we do 1 week worth of lessons, and we kind of check off the box that we've covered this. These are intended to be used in a multifaceted way, to kind of layer into what else you're doing, and to help guide teachers in being very purposeful in the materials that they're choosing, and in the discussions and in the language that you are using in your classroom. Okay. I'll pass it back to you, Helen.
So, what about the issue of body image? And this is a lot of the work that Heather and I have been trying to infuse, if you will, over the last 15 years, whether it be when, through our federation, when we were writing Reflections of Me and doing teacher 3-day workshops, etc., or with NEDIC, or through webinar, or even, to be honest, with our colleagues right on in the front lines. What about the issue of body image? Is inclusive curriculum only include this and this? Are we only looking at certain things? What about body image? And how do our choices, our language, how about all of those pieces? And I know respectfully over the year, I've challenged many to just think about it, because when we infuse this issue, and this is what we were saying before, our biases we have to challenge ourselves with so if we're talking about the summer body and getting the summer bod ready, what does that mean? And if our students are hearing us talk like this, or if we're talking about, I really shouldn't eat this, and our students hear this, right? It's all of these, the choices it's a very it's not overt sometimes. Like it's things that we're used to saying because this is part of maybe our culture. Our culture, whether it be our culture like within just growing up and who we are, not necessarily a broader culture of nationality, so to speak. But what about the issue of body image? How do we talk about this? And what are our students hearing? And this is a big piece. So for example, I'm just checking to see, later on you'll see, like even when we talk about good foods and bad foods, right? So I said to my students just this year, like a couple weeks ago, no, that's bad. I said there is no such thing as bad foods. There are yes foods and there are sometimes foods. And you know what? Sometimes you need the Big Mac from McDonald's and that's okay. So even thinking about our language when we're talking and sharing and just sharing our life with our students, this is a big piece. And so this is, over the years, I would say a lot of my time has been working more so with my colleagues than with my students.
Okay, here we go. I was just being very impatient before clicking too many times. So certainly, over the years, I've talked with staffs where, and I did this years ago, in my first few years, where we had a Weight Watchers Club at school. And every Friday morning before school, staff got all paged down to the staff room where we all did our weigh-in with the person from Weight Watchers. There were charts on the wall of who had lost the most weight. And the celebration was, we all then had breakfast together. And then the kids heard the talk out in the hallways, and the kids heard, oh, so-and-so lost the most weight this week, or so-and-so has dropped out of Weight Watchers Club. And those were discussions happening in the hallway, whether they were intended for student ears or not. The conversations were happening in the hallway, and little ears hear it anyway. I'm very cognizant now. I have a 3-year-old son, and I'm very cognizant of the language that my husband and I use around food. We don't talk about good food and bad foods. We talk about everyday foods and sometimes foods. We talk about, that it's great to have, treats, and it's great to have, celebrations. And there's celebrations that sometimes involve food, and there's celebrations that sometimes don't involve food, and that's okay. So one of the things as an educator, we do need to be aware of, again, that purposeful talk. We need to be aware of the ears that are listening, even when the discussion isn't intended for them, because we all know if two teachers are talking in the hallway, we know kids are hanging around wanting to hear what they're talking about. And, challenging ourselves to rethink how we talk about some of these subjects with students. What language do we use? Years ago, as a literacy teacher, I used to go in and out of classrooms, and there was a real push in our schools for healthy eating at lunchtime, and the students used to have to graph their food and put up on the wall, how many people had brought an apple that day, how many people had vegetables in their lunch. Well, for many of our students, they're bringing the best lunch to school that their parents could provide them that day. And especially, socioeconomic status, and life choices aside, sometimes for parents, the Lunchable is the cheaper and more economic choice that week than the fresh buns and fresh meat from the deli and fresh fruit. Sometimes the stuff that's on sale is what mom and dad can afford that week. And we can't ask children to judge their own lunches, their own food, their own snacks or to judge each other's. So that is certainly, I think, one of the biases that we talk about a lot is our food biases and those misconceptions and myths, and that we're not modeling that for students and we're not engaging them in those kind of discussions. I can turn it back over to Helen because I know.
Dying. Here we go. And so here, look at these questions. We're really tonight, when Heather and I were putting this together, we're actually talking more to you and getting you to reflect as much as thinking about for the educators in the room or those working with children, as well as working together with kids on the issue as well, or infusing it into your curriculum. Really looking at these questions. Are you ready? This last one. Are you ready to challenge the misconceptions and myths? I have a belly, a round belly. I have kids that will come up to me and say, "Whoa, you know, look at you have you're fat, and my reaction is going to dictate so much to that child. And I get down and I say, "You're so right. And how wonderful am I?" And it's like, "Yeah, you are wonderful." And off they go and they play and they skip away. But it's the no, a small, you know, it's really retraining it hurts. Don't get me wrong. The first time, you're really fat. And I had to go into the staff room, into the bathroom and cry. I did, because it was my own as well, I hadn't pushed myself to sort of see that this was not a child trying to be hurtful. I am that's my size. And so if I embrace that and I'm able to then use that in turn to challenge what students are thinking too, because they might be thinking it's bad. Research will show that as young as 3-4 years, like, they know that it's thin is preferred and thick, if I can use that word, is not. They know that. And so that's why some of the work that we've done with ETFO, the curriculum starts at kindergarten. This is not a grade 7-8 issue. This is not they're going through puberty, so we have to talk about this. So they don't go into disordered eating and they don't. No, this is something that we have to start as young as possible. I would be pre-kindergarten even, to just talk about self-love and self-esteem. And so even the way, that last question that's on this slide here, it's a huge one. Are you ready to challenge that? And sometimes I wish that I want all my staff in the room so that we can have this discussion, so we can dissect everything and share, like, even our vulnerabilities too, so that we can deal with things and move on together. So this piece is huge. Okay, this piece is huge about really reflecting and looking at your own biases as well. Okay.
Hi, Teresa. Thank you for your question. So, Teresa said, so are there concrete suggestions to balance healthy eating messages without feeding into the biases? I'm not sure if you're talking about in general or within the Beyond Images document, but I think what we would say is that we actually, our push and our message is let's get away from defining healthy eating. Let's get away from talking about and dissecting what healthy eating is. Yes, I know it is an element of the health curriculum, but it's one expectation. We've got 8 zillion expectations to cover in a year. It's one expectation. We don't need to spend a month talking about the ins and outs of, all the fruits and vegetables, etc. What we want to talk about is that our bodies need fuel to do the great things that they need to do. And that's what kids really need to know, is that we need to put fuel into our bodies in order to move, and in order to learn, and in order to do all the things that we want to do. So we're actually very purposeful in what we have created, and in the work that we've done with NEDIC to move away from talking about food extensively, because children, as we all know, have a very natural satiety point. My 3-year-old some days He'll eat. He's like a bulldozer, right? Everything in front of him, he wants to eat. And there's other days where I think he lives on air, and I don't see a single thing go into his body. He knows when he's hungry. He knows when he's full. I haven't taught him that. I haven't had to teach him that. He knew coming out of the womb when he wanted to eat and when he didn't want to eat. And somewhere along the way, some people, and not all, but some people lose that. I will speak to my own experience. I lost my satiety point at about 10, 11 years of age when I really discovered what dieting was all about and how I could regulate my food. And spent years, regulating in different ways, whether it was withholding food altogether or it was binging. And so I will say I am someone who doesn't really know when I'm full. My body doesn't naturally tell me that. I have to be very conscious of it. But our kids do know. So, and Chelsea, you've just added in here, focusing on positive food experiences. That's right. Food is a huge part of cultural celebrations. It's a huge part of life. And to be able to enjoy that time, that it can be a very social event with people. So, and the conversation is starting on the chat. That's fantastic. So, I just wanted to address that question, Teresa, because that was a fantastic question. Okay.
Hi there. Okay, I know people. I just want to make sure. Thank you for adding into the chat as well. And Teresa, I see that you're saying that you think health is something to integrate into the environment. Absolutely, but I think it just needs to look at health beyond food, right? So health beyond, what does healthy, even having a question and a conversation with children in the classroom about what defines healthy. And so such a great question, right? How do we balance those biases and balance the messaging as well? One of the things that was actually new for me when we first started this journey around body image and curriculum writing, etc., many years ago, is not teaching healthy eating at the same time as teaching about body image. That is very, very clear in the research, that teaching those at the same time, the messaging that, because of the societal pressures, media, etc., all of those things, because of the messaging around body image and that perfect sort of outer shell, if you will, or the perceived perfect outer shell, because of that messaging, if you teach that at the same time, which I used to do at the beginning of my career, healthy eating, like, it's a balance. It's don't overdo anything. You shouldn't eat a lot of carrots, just like you shouldn't eat a lot of chocolate, let's say, or whatever. That good food, bad food dichotomy. But really, it's about moderation. And I used to do that with body image. And then as we were writing and reading the research, and realized those two can't go hand in hand, because what the message is unconsciously that will be received is that, well, if I eat this quote unquote healthy way, I will be this perfect size. And so that's a huge piece as well, right? So even talking about what healthy means in general, and not even, and I see Chelsea, thank you. I see lots of people posting resources and stuff, thank you. But talking about non-dieting approach exactly to healthy eating, there's so many layers to this as well.
So as Helen moves us forward, just to jump in a little bit more, I think keeping body image in the mindset of this is about mental wellness. This is a mental wellness piece, because body image is very much related to mental wellness and health of the whole body. Again, healthy eating is one segment of it and one segment of the curriculum. And there are fantastic resources out there around healthful eating. the Canada Food Guide and the Dairy Farmers of Canada do some great work, and there are some fantastic resources out there, just like there are fantastic resources from OFIA, for physical activity and physical movement. Body image is very much about that affective domain, the mental health domain that for so long there was nothing there. I know in Peel Board, they're starting to make, they're making a change around mental health and wellness. They're talking about it a lot. There's a lot of research being done. The resources still aren't out there. They're not plentiful. They're starting to be, but many of the books that we will suggest around, working with body image and self-esteem with students, really get to that mental wellness piece. Because it is very much tied to what's going on in the brain and what's going on in the heart.
Okay, so these next a couple of slides, we have, thank you, Marbella. We have about 20 minutes left, so we're going to motor a little bit. These next few slides are images. So one of the quotes that we have is, let me center it, the problem isn't with your body, the problem is what you think of it and what you think of yourself. And we have this amazing campaign, I want to make sure that I have this, by NEDIC, where it was on the side of bus shelters with these magazines, and the statement is, shed your weight problem here. So there's different, and even our next slide, like even just thinking about how you feel. So this next very engaging slide is also different images, different quotes. Your body is not wrong, society is. This middle one I love. Need to be skinny for summer, and skinny has been scratched up. It says need to be body positive for always, right? So some of these, so just some quotes that we have that we thought that if you wanted to use. I love using quotes in the classroom with the kids too, to get them to think, even looking at this slide and thinking about your own body image and is it positive, and so reflecting there as well. The image on the right that will be there is even 10 steps to positive body image. So there's some things to integrate here.
So Helen, why don't you move us towards the body image slides maybe, and I'm going to address a couple of the questions that have come up on the side here. Okay. So thank you again for all of the great tips and quotes and resources being suggested at the side. Fantastic. We can tell that the right people are here this evening. I'm so pleased that you're here because clearly you are very passionate about this as Helen and I are. One of the questions that has come up, and this could probably be a whole extra hour discussion around ED prevention programs. What we're talking about tonight is when we think about teaching, is about teaching to all. Okay, so the body image, Beyond Images curriculum is meant for use with all students because it's focusing on developing positive body image, developing the critical media literacy skills that children need to analyze and understand messages that are being kind of thrown at them, and how to make sense of them and how to make sense of their interactions in the world, and how to help them develop skills to combat some of the body-based harassment and some of the negativity that is being faced. Eating disorders as a general topic of discussion in a classroom is not something that research supports in being beneficial, because eating disorders actually affect and impact a very small portion of our school community. When we actually look at the stats, the numbers are very small as to how many people will actually develop disordered eating or an eating disorder. So to do eating disorder prevention programs as kind of a general topic of discussion, what it can sometimes lead to is children trying it out for fun, experimenting with it, which we don't want them to do. You know, eating disorders are not the same as drug and alcohol abuse. You know, when we talk about drug prevention or alcohol prevention, those are substances that, you know, people choose to use or choose not to use. I like to think of it as disordered eating finds someone. People don't ever choose disordered eating. It's a behavior that comes out of a psychological state. And so to do kind of blanket discussions around anorexia or bulimia, it's not successful. What the research shows is that for children or youth who demonstrate the propensity or start to get into those behaviors, a prevention program or an understanding program may be successful for them in a small group, but not as general discussion or as general curriculum. And what I often recommend, and this is where my union hat's going to go on right now, is that, you know, as teachers, we're not counselors. We're not social workers, and we can't fix kids. What we can do is we can listen. So if a child is presenting, sharing with us stories or sharing with us behaviors that they're engaging in, or we're starting to see behaviors that concern us, you know, we can listen to the kids. We can let them know that we're here for them and that we can help them find support. But we are not the fixers of their problems. We can help get them to where the help is. So whether we're connecting with their parents, we're connecting with social work in the school, you know, we're getting resources to the family to reach out. That's really our role is.
So here is what we were talking about before, looking at, we've seen this a lot in schools, especially in the past, looking at good and bad. And so watching our words and watching our language is really important. So we're going to go to now what? So we wanted to spend a little bit of time talking with you, sharing with you Beyond Images, which we are so proud of. We're so proud of. Really, really, really proud of. It just went into, we just revised it to make sure that the most recent curriculum expectations were connected and involved, and we've changed some things from the first edition or second edition now. So we want to share with you some of the curriculum because this is really about getting kids to be critical, getting kids to be reflective, to think deeply, to even be, you know, how do they feel about me being media consumers and all of those pieces. So we want to share just little snippets, if you will. Here.
So one of the key elements for the Beyond Images program was to link body image with the development of critical media literacy skills. You know, we know that children are inundated with media images from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they go to bed at night. And what's missing from this screen is a wonderful image of all the different social media tools that we know that our kids are using. So you'll see that in the print version if you choose to print this off or download it. But really, what we wanted to make sure is that instead of trying to ignore or say, you know, all media is bad or all media is ineffective or all media, you know, is to really help students understand that, you know, they they have the power and they have the ability and they need to develop the skills to be able to interpret the messages that they're being bombarded with, they're being seen, that they are seeing, to make sense of them and how it works in their own lives, and then to actually empower them to be able to create their own media and create their own messages to kind of combat some of those societal messages that they are facing. So if we move forward to the next slide, what we've done is, so the Beyond Images curriculum is intended for grades 4 to 8. And, you know, there is a separate unit for each grade level. We tried to kind of pick a little bit of a theme or a guiding direction for each of our curriculum documents. And in our revised and updated Beyond Images 2.0 version here, we've connected it very much to the Ontario curriculum in that we talk about having a learning goal and talk about having success criteria. So how do the students know that they're being successful as they're working through the different lessons? There are several lessons at each grade level, but they are actually multifaceted and they're not 4 or 5 lessons that are 40 minutes each and done in isolation. They interlink into what you're doing in the classroom. And in many of our lessons actually, span over 2 or 3 or more periods and have many different jump-in points and take-off points and allow you to kind of go with the students and go with, their understanding and what they're bringing, their experiences bring to the lessons as well. So in grade 4, we really focus on developing positive self-image and what it means to have positive relationships with others. And we talk about, we know that in grade 4, oftentimes that's when cliques start to form, or we have our best friends and we have the students who are maybe not included. We talk a little bit about bullying and how to combat bullying. And we encourage the students to share positive messages through a variety of different options. Including things like blogs and poetry and raps, and it's an opportunity to interweave the arts because giving the students an opportunity to express themselves through a variety of different ways really helps them get to being able to share their ideas.
And in grade 5, it's really looking at advertisements and PSAs, for example, public service announcements. Purposes of ads and ads that the purpose is to make money versus educating or promoting a message, etc. And also embedded in grade 5 is looking at the analysis of media, but also in terms of strengthening their own sense of self-worth and self-image. So it's really finding their voice too. In this unit, we've embedded thinking about slogans and collages with positive messages, for example, writing letters and analyzing media, but also creating media. So in our language curriculum, the media literacy strand, for example, those are the 2 facets: the analysis of media and then the creation of media, and then using even the things that the kids have created to analyze. It's this whole sort of loop that we go into. So here it's really their voices and what is that student voice piece around thinking about the messaging that they're hearing, but also the messaging that they want to put out there.
Okay, and taking a look at the grade 6 curriculum again, as Helen mentioned, it's the duality of the curriculum in that they need to understand and critically analyze the messages that they're receiving, but also be able to create. And with grade 6, they do a great deal of work and taking a look at Canada as a nation and trading partners and all of those relationships that build. And so, we take a look at how media is used to inform and entertain and persuade for a variety of different reasons. The other thing is, with our grade sixes, particularly in some schools, they're often the leaders of the school. If it's a K to 6 school, they're getting ready to move on to the big middle school. They're often in leadership positions in the school. So we wanted to also capitalize on that as well. So their culminating task when they work through the various lessons, they actually create a magazine. And the magazine is aimed at promoting positive body image and self-esteem in younger students. And, we encourage as part of creating that then they would link up with younger students, younger grades in the school and be able to share that with them, and promote them being able to create the media that other children are then using.
In grade 7, this is really looking at redefining appearance ideals, redefining what is beautiful, redefining beauty, creating a counter narrative, and getting the kids really to think about these 3 questions here that are on the slide. It really threads through the entire unit. In this unit, embedded is a photography section, if you will. So even looking at, if I were to take a selfie right now, right? What would be the angle so that 3 chins don't show up, right? All of those, the kid, like the duck face, all of these things that is so much ingrained in a part of not just the students' world, but our world too. Instagram, all of these, Snapchat now. Looking at photography, looking also at spoken word is really embedded in, and this is something near and dear to my heart because I've been using this form of poetry really extensively within my grade 7, 8 classroom the last 5 years. The kids love it. Many struggling writers find their voice through this. So this is really looking at creating that counter narrative through using their voice to really redefine who decides what's beautiful. Like, who said that that's, and if we say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but then we stipulate that this is beautiful, quote unquote, then
Okay. I just want to address one of the questions asked by Anne at the bottom. What subject area would we be integrating this curriculum in? Very much so. Both Helen and I come from an educational philosophy of integration of all curriculum. I think we're both very much generalists by heart, and ourselves. We've always very much taught kind of cross-curricular and integrated. We've both been teacher librarians too, so we know the power of that. In the curriculum documents, we do outline specific Ontario curriculum expectations, and so all of these relate very much and are linked to the Ontario Language Arts curriculum. So we have reading, writing, oral, and media literacy. In here, we have many links to the different arts expectations, especially around visual arts and drama. We also have linked it where it's appropriate to a couple of health curriculum expectations, but ironically, there are very few health curriculum expectations in the Ontario curriculum that have anything to do with body image. And I'll save that rant for another time. But we, and we have looked very closely to see where does it link in with social studies or science. So, when we talked at the very beginning of this being an inclusive curriculum, that is really our intent too, is that, it really does interweave into so many different things happening. It will interweave into character education and mental health initiatives in boards. the climate work that many schools are doing. That's how it links, and that's how it integrates. So just very quickly, the grade 8 curriculum, again, these are our leaders in either our middle schools or in our K-8 schools, and these are our young adults who are getting ready to go off into the world in many aspects. And so we look at, in the grade 8 curriculum, in consolidating a lot of their understanding of body image and media, in determining how they actually do present themselves with others. We know with social media, our kids are on there with Snapchat, and apparently they don't use Facebook because it's only for old people like me. But they use all the other, so Instagram and everything else. And so the ultimate culminating task that they work towards is actually creating an online resume, where how would they create a visual representation of themselves that could be taken out into the world and used as a possible resume. We talk about the fact that employers actually do Google prospective new employees to see what people have online. There's lots of research and lots of newspaper articles around that. So we help the students to realize that their digital footprint very much is permanent. So how are they going to take control of that? And we take a look at what some of our superstars and what some of our our Kim Kardashians and sports figures have out there as their digital footprint, and they get a chance to really analyze the people that they use as role models to see if that's really how they want to portray themselves as well.
It's okay. Some great questions and comments here. I just want to, how long does a unit last? I think it all depends. I do spoken word, for example, for my whole second half of the year. We're infusing that photography and visual. It could it could be a 6-week unit, let's say. It could last longer because maybe body image is what you're using to model spoken word, and you're getting the kids, in the gradual release of responsibility that we talk about in teaching. Maybe body image is the issue that you're modeling with, but then the kids are maybe writing about an issue that's near and dear to their heart. Or maybe they all are. One year, 5 years ago, when my first year back in the classroom at 7-8, we all looked at body image all together, and we looked at spoken word in connection to that, and so that lasted several months. But it doesn't have to. As Heather said, there's 5 lessons in each of the in each of the units in each grade, but those 5 lessons are not 5 periods of the day, for example. So short elevator pitch, that's a tough one. I'm telling you, that's because a lot, and I'll get to you, Heather. But the thing is for a lot of teachers, sometimes the stress is all the curriculum expectations. And so, this is just another thing to lay on people's plates. The short elevator pitch, before I turn it to Heather to add to this, is even just, it addresses so much of the curriculum, but also it's an issue that it affects all of us, boys, girls, of all different size, shapes, and colors, of cultures, race, and so it also, in the Toronto District School Board, our vision for learning really is achievement, equity, and well-being. And for me, my short elevator pitch is, it actually addresses 2 of the
So I think to add in there as well is, when you get a chance to look at the curriculum, it really does match many boards' success goals around climate, around student well-being. It matches very much with ministry initiatives coming out around mental health and wellness in our schools. The other thing is that everything is there. The assessments are there. So, from start to finish, from having the learning goal and how to develop success criteria with the students, to taking them through very detailed lessons, exploring, the skills of media literacy and developing positive body image and combating, some of the images and the ideas that are out there, right up to having assessment data, through rubrics and through a variety of other tools. You're collecting strong data for reporting. So again, it's not an add-on. It's not something else that you have to fit into your day. It's actually going to, you have to read with the students anyway. You have to do writing with the students anyway. So why not be purposeful in what you're choosing in language arts and make it a valuable.
Before we end off. So before we go, two things. First and foremost, the NEDIC conference, Body Image and Self-Esteem Conference, is coming up in May 11th and 12th. Heather and I will be there May 11th. Come see us. Hug us in person. And so please, if you can, that information is on the NEDIC.ca, on the NEDIC website. And also, just before we go, we have our email addresses here. Please connect with us. This is a conversation. We don't have all the answers. We're passionate educators and we're passionate about the issue. We'd love to talk with you, share with you, etc. The slides will be available for you as well in all their glory. So that is there for you. And I think just before we end, thank you so much for joining us and taking the time out of our busy lives. Thank you so much. I want to read one thing before we go, please. Please remember, you are not a size, you are not a weight, you are not a color, you are not an age, you are not a trophy, you are not a doll, you are not stupid, you are not an image, you are not an advert.
I just want to thank everybody who was able to join us this evening. I know that it's one more thing that you had to do today on a very busy day. And so I appreciate you taking a part of your evening to be with us. As you can see, Helen and I are very passionate about this, and we would talk for all hours of the night if you let us. Helen has invited you out to the NEDIC conference. We would love to see you there. We are both huggers, as she said, so just beware. But please don't hesitate to contact either of us by our emails, because we do really believe in this very firmly, and we can give you those ideas about how to get teachers on side with you and how to get admin on side with you, because we've both been there. We've had to do it. We've had to convince. And we.
Sure, yeah, so I think from the bottom of my heart, from everyone at NEDIC and everyone who's joining us, thank you to Heather and Helen for this wonderful session. Just a reminder to everyone that Beyond Images is available online at Beyond Images for free at beyondimages.ca. And if you want any more information about eating disorders or how to access our help